Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to another episode of the Freshman 15 College Football Podcast with me, LP Cruz, and Tyler Moore talking college football in about 15 minutes. But not tonight because we have a double episode talking last week's game and the announcements of the latest CFP rankings as well. So we'll get into both of those things. Probably break it up, Tyler, like a two-part video. But as far as last week goes, you can say it was like the humbling or the reckoning last week in college football. So if you want to quote Dennis Green, it's like to say they are who we thought they were. That happened throughout college football last week. As Tyler always says, things work themselves out. And we had a bit of a humbling for some people in college football. Also somebody who might have lost the battle and still won the war. So we'll talk about that in a sec. But with that said, Tyler, my dude, what does that go?
Not very much. It like you said, it was a humbling experience for a lot of those teams. We had the downfall of Alabama, Ole Miss, and A&M. So, we're gonna get into that. But it was a good weekend for college football, especially for my Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yeah, man. Actually, so you know what? Tell you what, let's actually talk about that game real quick because that's the one that kind of got me. Just disclaimer, yo. As far as like the upset pick, there's one game that really pissed me off. We had the same games last week, right?
Yep.
So we had the same games, but something about the upset pick really, really pissed me off and grinds my gears. So we'll start here with Ohio State, man, and Indiana. We were going back and forth through text while the game was happening. Your feet was ahead of mine. I was a bit behind, but kind of walk me through your thoughts on this game.
Yeah. So Ohio State, they struggle. They always struggle in the first quarter. It's a weird phenomenon with them. But Indiana, they went down and scored right away, and it's like, okay, they had their 2 week script go, and then they were stuck after that. They held Warwick to eight completions for 68 yards. I mean, the running backs went off. Like they had to get away from it though, because they fall behind by so much. Special teams, all three phases of the game, you have to perform in all three phases of the game in big games like that.
Absolutely.
And Caleb Downs' punt return for a touchdown. That punter, slips right through his hand. There was a little bit of inclement weather at that time. Slips right through his hand, gives Ohio State the ball there. And if Ohio State doesn't, they're in their red zone twice and they don't score twice. This game could be 50 something to 15. Like Indiana was playing it close, and leading up to this game, I really didn't pay too much attention to what Kurt Signetti, like what he was like. I knew he came from James Madison, brought his people, and the pregame they show him talking like saying, Purdue sucks, so does Ohio State and Michigan. I'm like, oh, I didn't know he said that. And then the whole like Google me, all I do is win, Google me thing, and they were just trolling that. And Will Howard, putting out the cigarette at the end of the game. It's kind of humble experience for the Hoosiers to get their first big test. And it's kind of like one of those things where the talent always prevails in those situations, because Indiana's a good story, but Ohio State just has so much talent. That kind of just takes over. And like I said, good for Indiana to have to play in this game, but Ohio State's done it already twice. This year they played against Oregon, they played against Penn State, and those were top 5 matchups already. So Ohio State, they still claim onto that number 2 spot, and they kind of show why they're still the betting favorites to win the national championship this year.
Yeah, man, I think you kind of stole my thunder at the end with that. Because I think I texted you, I said, you know what, man, my text was all jumbled in bad format. But you know what I meant. Pretty much saying, hey, I think if you're an Ohio State fan, you start to feel good about the season. Like, this might be it. I won't say it. I'm not going to jinx it for you.
All right.
But I think you start to feel pretty good about where they're at. I think when you look at Signetti, I mean, he's not going to back down. He is who he is. It's not an act. It's not a show, but it is humbling. So you can kind of see like the chasm between, I said it last week, like it's advantage everywhere. Size, experience, talent, it's all stacked in the favor of Ohio State. And it showed over time, obviously. They had some luck running the football a little bit, but that was like their only shot was running the football. Once that kind of went out of hand, like you could call it. And yeah, you said Rourke had 8 completions, 44%.
8 completions for 68 yards. Yeah.
Yeah, man. And I will say this, though. I will keep saying this because I think every season has a turning point for every champion. Those are the turning point, obviously, right? And I always will stick back to Penn State. And the confidence the corners are playing with is lights out. I mean, they were dominant the entire way. Defense, too, man. Hats off to the defense. Jack Sawyer, Cody Simon were also great against the pass rush. I think they had 4 sacks between the both of them. But the main key here, I think, is when you look at, we'll talk about this probably later on tonight, but the main key is you can start to feel good about where this team is at with everything they have going for them right now, with the depth, the balance, everything. I mean, we talk about Will Howard now, at least I do as an afterthought, but to you, he was a Heisman candidate.
Yeah, he was my dark horse. Yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, they're loaded and they're set to play, and I think they're in the most advantageous spot they've been in a long time, where they're the class of a power conference, and the other conferences are not as good. So by proxy, can't really hate on them. I think they're doing pretty well.
Yeah, and so in that first drive that Indiana had, they picked on Igbinosun a lot, and Gus Johnson and Joe Klatt, they were pointing it out, and then Ohio State actually pulled him in the second quarter, and then he was back in the third quarter, and you didn't hear his name called again. They made him tighten up what he was doing and stuff, and it was kind of weird because Big Ten, and we've talked about this before offline, like the Big Ten and the SEC, they usually let their guys play. They let their guys be a little more handsy. That's why we see those guys translate better in the NFL, because they're used to more of like that contact kind of playing that the NFL refs let you get away with. So we usually see that in the Big Ten, but it wasn't like that in the very beginning of the game. It was kind of like, come on, man. And you could see like Ryan Day was frustrated with it, but that, like I said, they made good adjustments. Props off to Indiana, but like you said, we're probably gonna talk about this in a minute, but they may have lost the battle, but they won the war for this one. So
yeah, man, yeah. So before I go on this long tirade, I don't want to do this, but so I went back and I had to watch the upset pick, which is Arizona and BYU, and so one of the guys that I write with over at BTB, he's an alum of Arizona State, and he's just happy to get the win. So I totally get that. Like, getting the win is cool. That's what's most important. But as I watched the game on replay, I got more and more and more and more pissed off watching the game. So before I jump on the dude's back, kind of what are your thoughts on that game?
Yeah, so in the the first half, Levitt, Scatterbo, and Tyson, they could do whatever they wanted. They were moving up and down the field. The reason I called this the upside pick is because I don't want to steal your thunder for this, but so when you looked at BYU's schedule, they played so many close games throughout this thing. And let me just pull them up real quick. I already have it up, but it was so Oklahoma State 38-35, that's a win. UCF 37-24, Utah 22-21, that's a win. Kansas, they ended up losing to Kansas 17-13, Arizona State 28-23, and then they had the other close game, Baylor 34-28, and SMU 18-15. Like, you can only play with fire so much, and it the ball bounces one way or another. And Arizona State, they almost cost themselves with Dillingham doing whatever the heck he was doing, running his quarterback 50 yards. I mean, just punch it in. They're not going to score 2 touchdowns in 50 seconds. So it's that was the reason it was my upset pick. Like, Arizona State, they are trending up. We've seen it the past couple weeks. But like BYU, it's because they've played so many close games, and as you get farther into the season and these other teams that you're playing, they become more complete. It's like, those close games, like the ball bounces the other way, and then they just can't get it. So I'll let you go on your tirade now.
Yeah, man. I mean, watching the game, Dillingham does whatever you tell a coach not to do to win a game, and it's the mismanagement. I'm good with the onside kick. You get the onside kick, you score, you're up 21-0 at home, your crowd is hype. I mean, Tempe is a hype stadium. But from there, he did everything he could to be more aggressive and more aggressive and more aggressive. It almost kind of labored on, like, being a Dan Campbell when you don't have to be, in a sense. And it almost got you, because when you watch it from there, at one point they had the ball inside the 5-yard line. You kick the field goal, you're 24-0. No big deal. Go ahead, take the points. Wouldn't do it. Okay, fine. At that point, then you allow them to kind of get back in the game, because you're kind of letting them hang in there with your aggressiveness. Yep. And you're down the red zone once again. It's 28-23. Kick the field goal, go up by 8. The worst you can do is tie at home. Worst that could happen. Nah, I'm good. Let's just go for it again. So they kind of move the ball down the field. And what happens is that if Retzloff hits that throw to JoJo Phillips, it's a touchdown, and they take the lead. So that was like, I mean, we all kind of learned, when you play a fire enough times, you're going to get burnt, right? Like, at some point, you got to learn what not to do. And then on the very next play, you get the pick down to the 7-yard line. Again, it's a minute left, 2 timeouts. They're not going to beat you this way. If you run the ball, you're going to at least try to get the field goal again, go up by 8. They have no timeouts left. You'll be fine. And then what's kind of more kind of unnerving is that you get the 4 yard run on first down to set it up to first and go from the 3 yard line. They got a timeout left. And instead of saying, you know what, let's just punch it in, let's get the win, we're fine. And they haven't been able to stop the running back all day.
Yeah.
You have to stop Scatterbo all day. So just go ahead and punch it in. He tells his quarterback to run backwards 26 yards and again 10 yards backwards. And then the last coup de grace is, on 4th and 7, throw the ball out of bounds for as far as you can and see if they'll stop the clock or run the clock out.
Yeah. Analytics came right and, bit him in the butt there.
Man. Because, they caught the Hail Mary too.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. On like the 3 yard line or something like that.
And it fell short. I'm like, yo, this guy was 3 yards short of beating you at the last minute. It's like he did everything he could to lose the game. Mm-hmm. Look, whatever he has going on at the table this Thursday, be thankful for the win because you really almost screwed your team out of a Big 12 title game. And we'll talk about it later on too. But that was one of the worst coached games I've seen in a long time from a guy that didn't need to do it. And I get mad at him because he had the audacity to step to the refs. But I'm like, have you been watching yourself coach this entire game? Like, what are you doing here, man?
Yeah.
So yeah, man, I was pissed, man. I was pissed for all ASU fans watching that guy coach on Saturday, man. Terrible, just shit coaching.
Yeah, it absolutely was. So if we're just gonna roll into like this upset pick, not upset pick, but who hurt themselves? It's got to be Ole Miss. They were in prime position to
talk about that one, man.
Yeah, they were in prime position to just sit there, not even have to be playing the conference championship, just sit there, be pretty, just win the games you have left on the schedule. You're going to be in that tail end, and Lane Kiffin does what Lane Kiffin does. It's unbelievable that he does it year in and year out, and like the whole SEC as a whole, so they basically swap spots with Tennessee. Tennessee takes care of Vanderbilt this week, and they're sitting pretty in, and Lane Kiffin and Ole Miss, like you could see it in his press conference, he was basically crying, saying that that he knows they're done. There's a lot of stuff that has to happen, and I think like Indiana has to lose to like Purdue, but I don't think that's going to happen at all. So yeah, that's who hurt themselves the most is probably SEC. They're still talking about Alabama possibly getting in, but Ole Miss, they're the ones that really shot themselves in the foot.
So it's funny. I have another team that actually hurt themselves too, and really squandered it. So, and this is me. I know I'm a pseudo fan of this team. I talk about them every week on the show. Colorado once again, right?
Oh yeah.
The Buffaloes. And first, I'll credit to Kansas. They've been like the Big 12 boogeyman all season, taking teams out. It's been a pain in the ass for so many teams in the conference. Iowa State, BYU, Colorado being the last victim. It happens a lot, and with this team, and I guess college football as a whole, there's like a thin line between jubilation and despair. Like it happens so quick for teams and programs, and just losing that game, man. You get ran over by Devin Neal, who goes off like I think 287, 4 touchdowns. He destroyed them, and it's funny because just a week prior, all they had to do was win and get in, and they were in the Big 12 title game. Now, I don't think it's possible. While could it happen mathematically? Sure, but you would need to win the game and have other teams lose. And also, you need the bottom feeders to also win their games as well. So you have to rely on teams that are at the bottom of the conference to win their games to get in. It's it's tough, man. And they got no one else to blame but themselves. Like, again, all you have to do is handle your business. And the sad part about it is because you do sit, according to ESPN, FPI, you have a 10% probability to win the conference. And that's your only way in the tournament. The big one, at least. Like that's the only way in.
They're sitting at 25 now, right?
Yeah, something like that. Or was it 16?
No, it's like 25. I think the things came out earlier. I think they're sitting at 25. Yeah,
tripping. Yeah, so it's something. They're way off the grid in terms of even trying to get in there. I just think their best shot is to win Friday and then scoreboard watch on Saturday. But what's going to get lost in the game is Shedeur played pretty good. Played pretty well. He got beat up. I think it's one of those games where even because Shedeur, we're always thinking about the next phase for Shedeur and Travis and stuff like that. I do think, in a sense, for Shedeur, playing the way that he did after getting whooped on, I think it's a positive for him. It bodes to his toughness. But for the program at large, I think you can kind of see like the writing on the wall. Like this is the end of this iteration of these guys. Dion will get more players and stuff like that, but the same, I guess, hype and fervor that you have for the program is not going to be the same without Shedeur and Travis. And I think you're kind of seeing the end of a pseudo era in Buffalo. And it was, like I said before, it happened so fast and it was fun while it lasted. But I think that's a wrap for Buffalo. So they hurt themselves the most last week.
Yeah. So, I'm just gonna roll right into this rivalry week thing, and
Shoot.
I'm gonna preface this by saying I wouldn't touch any point spreads this week, man. It's one of
Yeah.
those things.
Yeah.
It's like you look at it, you're like Ohio State's a 21-point favorite over Michigan. I ain't touching that with a 10-foot pole, man. Like we talked about it like texting this rivalry week. That hatred's a whole nother level, man.
It is,
These
man.
games are on a whole nother level. Like I don't know. I wouldn't put my money on it. So I mean, if you want to be a degenerate and do it, go ahead and do it. But Ohio State, Michigan, that's the big one for me. But but I think the one that everyone's really gonna watch is gonna be the Texas A&M game because that has so much
Yeah.
implications on that one.
Yeah.
And we could talk about rivalry games and whatnot, but I'll let you out because I think we're both gonna watch this Texas A&M game because that is the big one this weekend. I'll let you go ahead and touch that one.
Yeah, man. So actually, on this one, big assist to a friend of the show, Pat, who you've had on before. I'm basically gonna read his notes off because this is what he's saying. So I'm gonna go ahead and kind of paraphrase what he's saying. But this is the game of the week. Obviously, I mean, it's simple for Texas. You win, you have the best record in the SEC, so you're assured to go in the title game. If you lose, you're not tied at 6-2 with the Aggies and maybe a lot of other teams as well. So it gets a bit convoluted. We'll see how that works as far as three teams.
Aggies are 3 loss. Georgia would be their tie.
Now hold on. As far as in conference, they're all 6-2, right? Provided they.
Yeah.
So that's the trick. That's the ultimate trick. Can you if you tie? Because I believe it's likely what will happen will be like a four-way tie, 6-2. So you're playing the percentages of, who beat the transitive properties of you beat this team, I beat that team, and whatever the case is. Which is, it's going to get messy if you lose.
Yeah.
If you're Texas, it's going to get messy. From what Pat is saying, his main concern is stopping Marcel Reed from running around and kind of giving new life to the A&M offense, with Le'Veon Moss and Marcel Reed. I don't worry about that. Looking at the numbers, they've been able to handle the running quarterbacks well, like really well. Dual threat from Arkansas, Taylor Green was shut down, 16 carries, -4 yards, did absolutely nothing. Carson Beck was held in check. Didn't mean to rhyme on that one, but that was good. And Pavia, who's been a pain in the ass for everybody, he had 67 yards, but not enough to impact the game. So by Pat's notes, he's saying that the name to watch is Ant Hill spying on Reed for the Longhorns. That's the big one. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, can you keep yours clean in the pocket? I know he's banged up, but that's going to be key. He thinks it's a blowout. Can't say that during this week, so I don't really know. I think it's close. And going to College Station isn't easy, so I think it's close. But this is the game to watch for sure. For sure.
One that I really want to touch on, is you and I talked about it earlier in the game, a year early in the year against the team that you just mentioned, Texas A&M. South Carolina going to end the hopes of Clemson. Can Shane Beamer and the South Carolina Gamecocks take it? So it's number 18 versus number 17. There's no way that South Carolina can get in, but I mean they can just play straight spoiler for Clemson. I mean, right now I think they're listed as like the first team out. But man, it's Beamer. They can definitely play spoiler on this one. And they're a gritty team. We've seen close games for them all season long. Sometimes they win, sometimes they lose. Playing with the fire, like we said. I think the Gamecocks can pull one out, and I'm not saying that because I'm a Dabo Clemson hater. But it's I believe in Shane Beamer on this one because he did it once earlier in a big game, and I think he's gonna do it again here.
I think honestly, it's when it comes to Shane, I say this: his program has gotten better and better and better and better. And because they've lost some tough games, we're now season 3 of the show. We've seen them fall on their face pretty hard, but they've gotten better and better, and they're also getting more talent and more talent. Crum, who we know pretty well, he's talked a lot about their front. That's pretty good. Now we saw what happened to them at Pittsburgh last week, or maybe a couple weeks ago, right? Well, 2 weeks ago, where they had a hard time just getting their offense going because of the offensive line was under siege the entire time by Pittsburgh. Well, they can do that also with their front four. Guys like Tonka Hemingway, Sanders, Kennard off the edge. They have a lot of talent. Devo Williams. They have a lot of good players. Plus, I think they have one of the more underrated secondaries in college football. Just from what I've seen. Guys from Fortune, the safety, Emanawari. I'm saying his name right. They've got a lot of talent, and not only that, they're very big. They're built with big, tall corners that want to reroute you. and they run the ball well. I mean, there's a lot of talent at South Carolina that's not talked about enough. Because I know they're playing with a freshman quarterback, but they've got a good tight end. They've got the receivers. They got speed. They got two good running backs, I think, with Attaway and Raheem Sanders. And they're good, man. Like they're actually really good. So could I see it happening? Yeah. And provided they lose, that would be Miami and SMU.
SMU, yep. I think for Clemson to get in, I think Miami has to lose regardless.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, I don't think that's gonna happen.
So they need win and lose.
Yeah,
but again, they can handle it themselves. So if they want to take themselves out to the trash can, totally fine.
Yeah, I ain't complaining.
No, but that'd be a good matchup, man. But yeah, so as far as upset picks go, because I guess we have both Saturday spotlights. Was that your upset pick, or you got something else?
Yeah, I'm definitely saying South Carolina's beat Clemson. That's my upset.
That's your upset pick. Okay,
yeah, that's my upset pick.
So I'm gonna stay within the SEC also for the upset pick, and
Auburn over Bama.
Nah, that's wild. That's wild. I'm actually gonna go with Vandy over Tennessee. Believe it or not. They've been the reaper, honestly, man. Believe it or not. Not in the same way of Kansas or whatever, but they've been kind of the reaper this season. Which is, I mean, just watching them how they operate. They've been problematic. I mean, they did beat Auburn this year, Kentucky, Alabama, and they had two close games. I think one-score games on the road to LSU and Missouri. Like they're not like the doormat of the conference anymore. Like they're not the teams that get pushed over and beat up, by everybody. Like they're respectable, honestly. And the reason why they're respectable is because of their quarterback. I saw it week one firsthand for my Hokies. Like he's a problem. I mean, he leads them in rushing. He's an effective passer. Like he's a good player. Undersized, yeah, sure, but he commands a lot of attention with what he's able to do for that team. And I think for Tennessee, man, it might be a matter of wrong place, wrong time, wrong opponent.
Yeah, they're playing in Nashville.
It doesn't matter to me. It honestly doesn't matter. Believe it or not, it doesn't matter. I just think, and the reason why I say that is because there's certain things that I worry about Tennessee last week. Like I've been kind of driving the bus for Tennessee also, based on their talent. Like I like their talent. I like their receivers, their running backs, the quarterback, even their defense. However, I didn't like how they handled defending the tight end last week. Didn't like how they handled the dual threat quarterback either. And that's kind of what's kind of bugging me a little bit about them. I have concerns as far as how you defend the tight end. They had Delp kind of kill him last week. Like Delp scored, I think, twice last week. But this tight end for the Commodores, Brandon Fontenot, is pretty good too. He's their best playmaker easily. Like he's their best receiver. Doesn't matter if he's tight end or not. He's big also. 6'4", 220. I mean, runs pretty well. I think he's just a guy that's going to be tough. And the other part is if you can kind of slow down Nico from running, keeping Sampson under control, that's kind of the big thing. So that's what I'm looking at, man. I think that it's a big deal. And they have a pretty good linebacker as well. I'm sorry, Fontenot is their linebacker, who's got like a tweener safety, but their tight end is also pretty good too, Stowers. So, yeah, man, I don't know. I think Vandy kind of takes this one.
I mean, we've seen it. We've seen him do it to Bama. Reese Davis talked about it on that college football show today. Because I tuned into it. I wanted to see what they had to say, and he said, Alabama, they sometimes they've shown that they could be the best team in the country this year, and other times they show that they're absolutely terrible. So, and Vandy caught him on one of those times. And like you said, Vandy, they are the reaper this year for the SEC, and we could probably see it one more time.
Yeah, man. Yeah, dude. But Tyler, man, with that said, dude, any last thoughts?
No, man. Like I said, I wouldn't touch spreads for this week, and go Buckeyes. It's time for Ryan Day to show up or shut up. So
it's getting there, man.
Yep.
We'll see what happens.
I mean, that's it. So I mean, regardless if they win or lose, I think they're gonna be in the playoffs. But I'd like to right some of his wrongs here. So.
Absolutely, man. All right, yo. So for my guy, Tyler Moore, I'm LP Cruz. This has been the Freshman 15 College Football Podcast. Also, keep it locked for part 2 of this the double episode. So, peace.
Peace.